If you're an illustrator or a digital artist and you're working in Photoshop creating flats, I'm going to show you today a super quick little tip, one tick option that's going to allow you to use the paint bucket. Yep, the good old paint bucket that has all those issues in the past with fills that we all know about. I'm going to show you guys a way to fix those today. So traditionally what you would have done in the past, if you had an artwork like this and you wanted to go from this like plain line work to filled in with a whole bunch of details, you would have been using either maybe like a brush to fill in on a layer underneath your outlines and just kind of manually fill that in, or you could have just gone in with your lasso tool and just kind of made a selection around that, much bigger shape, and just kind of keep going on around. So I've got thick outlines here, so I can kind of wiggle a little bit more. I've got a little bit more room to kind of maneuver, and then just option delete to kind of fill that in. So those are the ways that I would have worked kind of in the past. Nothing wrong with them per se, but they do tend to take a little bit more time because I've effectively got to redraw around all of my artwork. So here it's pretty simple, but again, if it's kind of a little bit more detailed, that's going to take a little bit more time and maybe kind of have mistakes along the way, like we've got right here where I haven't been quite careful enough and I've got a little bit of a thing sticking out on the side here. A biggie, but also not great depending on what you're trying to get. So let's zoom out and try and see kind of what we can do here to fix this. So I could make a new layer and just come in with a brush and just kind of do the same thing that I did with my lasso tool and just paint along the outline here. So again, this is going to require a little bit of kind of control, might take a little bit of time depending on, you might get some errors like this. But traditionally what you would have done is you would have come in with a paint bucket and just clicked to fill in that area that you just kind of painted in instead of kind of filling it all in. But the problem with that is the paint bucket kind of sucks at trying to figure out where the pixels begin and end, and so you get this horrible line that happens in there. So how do we use the paint bucket and not get that? Well, I'm going to show you. Let's start by getting rid of these two layers. So delete, and I'm going to make a new layer behind or underneath all of my outline layers here. And I'm going to go to my paint bucket. And all I'm going to do now is, without actually making any selection, without making any painting, I'm actually going to change one setting in the options. And I'm going to switch this to all layers. I'm just going to tick that box up here. And as long as I'm working underneath my outlines here, I can then just click in these areas and it will fill those areas accordingly. What it's doing basically is it's using the outlines on top of that, all the layers on the top of that, as a reference layer, which is what programs like Procreate, Adobe Fresco, and Clip Studio Paint also do. And this is super handy because what it also means is not only can you fill super quickly, but if I turn off my outlines layer, you can see that it's kind of blocking out, it's knocking out the colors underneath the black and separating effectively your colors. So this is super handy if you're working with any kind of screen printing. You've already got all your layers knocked out of each other, and that's going to make your workflow a lot smoother and your printer a lot happier. Now, something else to check up on is when we zoom in here, if we've got finer details, like for instance, I'm going to fill this little triangle in here. If I zoom in, you'll see that there is actually a little bit of a pink kind of halo, and there are definitely a few pink pixels in there. So the paint bucket hasn't quite gotten all the way into that super sharp nook there and managed to get the fill into it. So we can change that simply, let me undo that, by changing the tolerance, which is set to 32 by default. I'm going to change that to something a lot higher, like 150, and I'm going to click again in there, and you'll notice that that is now gone. And so we can actually just kind of start filling all these areas in super fast using this method and clearing up all of our artwork. Now, obviously this is using a single flat color, but I can make a new layer and pick a different color. So I'm going to go with a purple and just kind of start clicking on this helmet here, and it's just going to work along the same lines as it has previously. So I can just make that helmet a different color on as many layers as I want, and it's still working to that separation thing. So again, your color separations are perfect for a screen print. And that's it. Just a really simple, quick feature to click in Photoshop, changes everything, and let's use the good old paint bucket again, which I hadn't used for years before I found this out, simply because it just was not filling properly and just left a whole lot of shitty pixels all across the area. So Hopefully this helps you kind of smooth out your workflow and speed up your process a little bit. If you enjoyed it, if you got something out of this video, a like and a subscribe would be super appreciated. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for the next video. Until then, take care.